moving in the right direction. They opened a lot of stuff, but still not fitness and health facilities. So we're training outside right now. I just went back last week.
Nice. I think as long as it's convenient that it's summer-ish outside in most parts of the country. And like we even being open, like we're accommodating clients. We're still doing virtual. We're still training outside. But we are able to get in the gym, which is good. But obviously with like space restrictions, and we're operating under 25% of our fire code capacity. So like, you know, you put 20 people in a facility and 5 of those are trainers, you know, it limits what you can do versus what you used to be able to do. So the good news is, and I don't know if you guys are experiencing this as well, is a lot of clients outside of health, like outside of like glaring health issues that they may have with COVID-19 and things like that, as long as those health safety measures are taken in your gym, people have actually said that they've enjoyed the environment better because it's less crowded, which is it's positive. Yeah. That's a positive thing for sure. Because that was the big thing I was worried about when we reopened was how are people going to feel in the gym? And as long as you can ease the safety concerns and make sure that you're doing the right things with cleaning and sanitation and whatnot, like people have really enjoyed just having more space to be around and train. You know, they're not on top of each other. You just don't have to share as much equipment. You don't have to share benches. You just kind of have your own little area. So hopefully that's a positive for you guys as everyone starts to reopen and get back to what life was like pre-closure. I don't like saying the new norm. I don't think that's like the most accurate way to describe it, but it's been pretty positive 2 days in.
Good.
And how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Are you outdoors with like
Yes.
tennis athletes? Nice.
Yes, outdoors. I do lessons, and we do 2-day-a-week fitness type class.
Do you have any like crazy restrictions with tennis? It's like the perfect sport for social distancing. I mean, you're like way away from everything.
We started out not letting the students touch the balls just because I might teach 3 or 4 people in a row. But you know, they're finding more and more that probably it doesn't have anything to do with touch. And so we're still doing that a little, but if they touch it, we're not making a big deal out of it.
Nice. Yeah, that's tennis. We opened our clubs open for tennis probably 4 weeks ago, and everyone had been like bootlegging tennis like outside at parks and whatnot. And everyone's like, the organization is very well received. So that's good. It's perfect. If you're doing like sports and stuff like that, like, I know one of our coaches is big into golf, and like golf instruction and golf performance has been like the best thing for him right now because everyone is naturally spaced out and you're always outside. So and if it rains a little bit,
they're on the other side of the net. We put them on the other side of the net in tennis, so we don't have to be close to them at all.
Perfect. And where are you based out of?
I'm in Virginia, Blacksburg, Virginia.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, we've got a nice representation here of everyone. So squad, we've got multi-directional speed this week. We used to call it change of direction, but we've moved into calling it multi-directional speed because that's probably a better accurate depiction of what you really have to do, rather than a linear speed where we're talking a straight line. Multi-direction meaning everything from a contorted body. I used to play lacrosse, so I always refrained to that as a background as far as like upper body facing one way, hips facing another way, back pedaling, as well as a plant and turn or turn and rotation. So a big piece when we talk multi-directional speed for us has been, it's the skill that no one ever really teaches. If we can all go back to, or if you have a kid, or if you can remember when you were a kid, you show up at like age 5, it's the fall, it's soccer, and that's like everyone's first rec sport. They roll a ball out there and they say, go chase it. And they just assume at that point that kids are learning how to run well, and they assume that kids are learning how to plant turns, manage center of gravity well. And flash forward now 10 years, this kid is now 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and they have no simulation of balance, no simulation of foot positioning as it relates to their whole body. So for us, bringing it all full circle, is change of direction, multi-directional speed is what we coach the most in our facility, and it's the most that yields a return for athletes as it works to translating into their competition or their play, because you have to be able to manage your body in a 5-yard box for everything. Every sport requires a change of direction or multi-directional speed, even if it's track coming up and out of a block. So it's something that is huge for us, and I think that some people, I know Lee Taft coaches multi-directional speed. Ian Jeffries is a change of direction wizard. If you've never heard of Ian Jeffries, he's actually on the election board to be the next president of the NSCA. He's been on the Perform Better speaking circuit, but he's a gentleman. He's based out of Europe, and I don't know if it's Ireland. I want to say Ireland, but I'm not entirely sure. It might be the UK, but he's based out of England or Europe. I think Ireland, but I'm not really sure. Ian Jeffries kind of sounds like it could be Irish, but he has a PhD in multi-directional speed, and his stuff is awesome. If you get a chance to look at it, it's very practical. He has a rugby background, so there's not a lot of fluff when you listen to his content or you listen to him speak. He's just very concise and to the point, which is, I think, for a lot of strength coaches, very well received. There's not a lot of research jargon and research words, but it's all evidence-based, which is really nice. Ian Jeffries being that name. I hope that he's the next president of the NSCA, because he definitely knows his stuff. I don't know how well he'll do with understanding what coaches need, but as far as his educational background, he's very, very intelligent, which is good. But what questions do you guys have early on as we look into multi-directional speed and get week 5 underway here? Or even if it's on what we just did with linear speed, you guys have any questions? Definitely check out the webinar. I was just trying to pull the webinar up myself. I've got a couple minutes here after this webinar or after this phone call. I'm gonna watch it. But my next question for you, and this is kind of dovetailing off of what Bill talked about last week, as far as kind of, I'll say, like curtailing the mentorship as to the avenues that you're looking to get out of this, whether it's, right now, like team training, like getting outside and training larger groups, as large as your state will let you. If it's more on the business side, if it's more on the coaching education side in something specific, like really catering and getting your feedback and trying to like wrap up the last half to 3/4 of this mentorship based off what everyone wants is a huge priority for us. Obviously, you guys are group number 1 for Parisi, which is awesome. But for us, there's plenty of information, but I know for me personally, and I think for a lot of strength coaches and people in this industry, it's nice to hear from other people that have the experience. So if it's someone, and I will say Bill has a very nice Rolodex of contacts, and if you've listened to the Q&A from last week, he's definitely a chatty individual. So it doesn't take much for Bill to get someone on the phone, but we could probably pull in some Q&A guests, which I definitely want to do going forward. If not every other week, or if not every week, definitely every other week. And hopefully our next guest will be Steve Leo, the Director of Education for the Parisi Speed School. He did the webinar over linear speed on speed endurance. But Steve has coached everyone from the New York Jets. He was contracted by the Jets during the lockout a handful of years ago to his daughter's track team, but he's the strength coach at Gil St. Bernard's right now and has been in the van with Bill when they first started. So Steve is our Director of Education. He's incredibly intelligent. But again, I don't mean to preach this, but the practicality of it, I think, is what really values a group of strength coaches from various backgrounds who are trying to get better at their craft. Theory and research is great, and it's great to understand, but at the same time, like talking to someone about how they implement it into their coaching practice is super valuable, because now you can kind of kick it with what your situation looks like or what you're trying to do in your facility. And that's big. That's important. So, we'll definitely have him on. We'll definitely have Bill back on, but any topics or areas you guys think that might be relevant even now, like even if it's not really training content with like gyms reopening or anything like that, we can definitely make that happen, make that a realization. So, open to feedback. We're just going to ride this out until someone says something.
Hello, this is, okay.
Go ahead. You go first, man.
Okay, this is Kieran. I know one thing that I go through a lot with my clients is just consistency, where I'll get a child or an athlete that will sign up and they'll go 2 weeks, and then after that, I don't hear from them for another week and a half due to, say, vacations, their own hobbies, and then they start back up, and then they're a little frustrated because they're not getting the results they want. And I explain to them and their parents saying, hey, you got to be consistent with this. You just can't do it 1 week and take the week off and expect to get the results you want. So that's the main thing that I have to deal with my clients that I work with. And I was wondering if you had any advice for that, or is that something you deal with at your gym, Casey, as well?
It absolutely is. I think that is the plight of everyone in the fitness industry, is getting them to be consistent, because it's the only way you're ever going to reach your goals, performance, aesthetics, general health, or whatnot. It's funny you say that, because that's been kind of the topic of discussion here in the facility as people start coming back into the gym, is getting them, and it's a little different because they're going from nothing to something. But I read a great book over the shutdown period that really kind of brings what you're talking about to light. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't know if anyone's ever read this book. It's I listened to it. Not the best reader, but I listened to it through my library app, and it was about 5 hours long. But one thing that this gentleman talks about, he's a researcher in habit formation, is the first thing is make it visible. The second thing is make it easy. And then there's like the flip side of that. If it's a bad habit, which is like not coming or not prioritizing time in this case, like make it, like he uses the analogy, like make it not tasty, like make it taste bad. And then make it hard to do, like make it physically hard to continue that bad habit. And I think when it comes to getting people to adhere to training, there's two different ways you can do this. And this is something that we're experimenting with right now that we've never really done before, is one, having a penalty for missed sessions. Like kind of like curtailing bad habits and like making it taste bad is like, hey, if you have, 10 sessions on your account, and you don't give us a 24-hour cancellation, then that session is docked. And it's something that we've actually have been really not good at having the cancellation policy. So that's something we're starting on, kind of like the making it taste bad, is saying there is some type of repercussion because, like we want you to stick with it. And then the second thing we're doing for the summer is the opposite of that, as far as like something more positive reinforcement, is we're having like an attendance type challenge. So the more times you come and train, or in this case, like it's what is it? It's like 50 workouts through the course of the summer, which is about every other day, plus or minus weird vacation. There's probably 4th of July week that we know people are going to be kind of gone. And then there's always that last week of July, first week of August that people kind of flake out. So we kind of took out 2 weeks there. So 50 workouts. If you hit 50 workouts, you get a prize. The prize is a t-shirt for us. Super cheap, super easy to do. It can be anything. It can be like a free week if you don't want to give it like a tangible thing away. But we're making it taste bad if you don't come, and we're making it something like tolerable, achievable to come. So it's kind of a reward incentive. Part of it is because we've been shut down. We want to help people get into the building as well. But as far as like adherence to training goals, we literally ask to, when they start and they onboard, what their perfect week looks like. So if everyone comes in, they're like, I want to train 5 days a week. Like everyone, it's super easy to go from 0 to 5 days a week of health work or training, fitness. And the reality is, if you can get in 2, you're probably doing better than 90% of the population. So we come up with the perfect week scenario, we come up with the worst case scenario, and then we come up with a scenario we call the average week. Yes, perfect case, you can get it in 5 days, you're killing it. Worst case is something happens and you get 0. And then the average scenario is how to fit 2 or 3 times in and go from there. And we find that drawing that picture, like literally putting it on paper, like we do it through our client intake sheet, doing that with someone is huge. If it's an athlete, it's when are you practicing? what maybe you have like in the summer you're taking a class. What's your sports skill work look like? What does your job look like? Okay, now what's your realistic time frame to train? Maybe you're doing something at home and we have programming for that. Maybe you're doing something with us. How many days is that? Here's how we're going to do it. So we literally look at their current schedule and we look at how it fits and we walk them through it. I think that's something that has really helped on the personal training front, because personal training, typically for us, people are more willing to make a change, or they know that they need assistance to make that change. But on our sports performance side, I think a lot of kids do it because they know it's good for them. It's like eating their vegetables. Like, yeah, lifting weights and learning to run and move better is going to help me in basketball. But they're not mentally prepared to make that change. Or, I mean, the parents are kind of like, you're doing this because you're not playing soccer this fall, so you're going to do this and you're going to get ready for basketball. They think it's going to be like an even swap. And it isn't. So working with the kids on that is huge. It kind of segues into goal setting and what people want to get out of the training sessions. And for parents, we do it because it helps them understand when they have to bring their kid to us, because the kid can't drive. So it kind of depends on what ages you're talking about, Kiren. But I think that's been huge. It's just mapping it out. And that's actually what Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about as far as making habits tolerable. People strive for perfection, but making habits tolerable is huge. And then, negative habit formation is about like making it taste bad. And then positive habit formation is making it rewarding, make it something that they can get out of it. So those are two things that I took literally directly from that book and we're putting into the business. And then the other piece is, it kind of reaffirmed how we help people map it out in their current life, their current schedule, whatever it may be. So we do that right from our client intake session when someone comes in. It's like we do the physical movement assessment. We do a sample like training session based off of that, which is really just kind of figuring out where their weight should be with certain movements. And then we kind of do like the out of the weight room, out of the facility type conversation. Okay, like how can we make this fit for you? How can we make this cost effective for you? And then it's go time from there. Does that give you some ideas? Cool.
Thank you.
Not perfect, but I mean, it helps. It helps. And what I think, and I actually I've been thinking about this a lot this week, is it helps the business and it helps you as an individual build the relationship and not just make everything so transactional, which I think people expect. Like you go to a grocery store, you have a cart full of groceries, you go to the checkout line, you give them money, you walk out with your groceries. But when you collect a service, like everyone has a mechanic for their car. And you don't not necessarily you are maybe buying a part for your car, which is extremely transactional. But when you have your mechanic install it or your mechanic look at your car, it's a relationship. You're trying to trust that person to not screw you over. And it's kind of like that with what we do in fitness, sports performance, health, whatever it may be. Whereas if we can drive and create the relationship with someone, they'll actually become more invested, not only in themselves, but with us. And I think that is the goal, is to make our business feel less transactional, which people are used to doing, especially now where everything is shop online, curbside pickup, whatever it may be. Whereas you still have to come face to face with us, whether it's through a computer screen or 6 feet away in a facility, and being able to create that relationship and drive relationship type business is imperative right now, especially. So, kind of taking those little steps when people get started, I think help kind of shape that business relationship or business mold going forward. Josh, what were you going to say?
Actually, I want to ask another question, kind of piggybacking off of that first, top of my head. How much do you emphasize improving metrics as like I guess in your promotion, your advertising, your why people should be there? Because obviously that's the measurable piece is like, oh, did you get faster, right? Did you see your sport performance improve? But then when you come into the issue of like consistency, like Kieran was talking about, and we have all the different factors of just overall athletic ability of the person coming into you, and et cetera, et cetera. So is that like, do you think that should be a major point of emphasis? Like, we make people faster, we make your lift stronger, or do you think that should be more on the side and it's more about coaching and more about relationships? Obviously, that's a loaded question that everybody probably has their own answer to, but you know what I mean? Just kind of like thoughts on that. Because sometimes I get scared of being like, you'll get faster, but I only see you 2 days a week. And it's like, I hope, you know what I mean? But like, I don't want to necessarily say that and then have that become something that isn't being met or whatever.
So it's a really good question. And I'll try to give a very specific answer. From the Parisi side of things in sports performance, every athlete starts with a movement screen and performance metrics baseline. It's not necessarily like a grade, like you need to run this fast, jump this high. There's definitely benchmarks and movement standards that we like and enjoy athletes coming in with. But say we're doing your laser, we're going to do your 10 and 20 yard sprint, vertical jump, broad jump, and whether I say chin up variation, because it's either going to be your max chin ups or a flex arm hang, or if you can't do that, it's going to be a 45-degree TRX row hold. And we have just baseline numbers. So from there, we do performance evaluations in our training sessions. We rotate through them every week. This was pre-closure. Obviously, we start our groups next week, so we're going to have to kind of figure out how we retest our athletes. But basically, every week we rotate through a test. So if it's our linear speed sessions, we may retest 10s, we may retest 20s, we may retest 40s, whatever it may be. If it's a strength class, we may retest our chin up, we may retest our broad jump. We're kind of baking it into our training, collecting data as we go. Now, I think that's important to understand how and when you're retesting your athletes, and if you need to. I will say, if we have an athlete coming in for a month, we don't retest them. We'll do a performance baseline, but it's more to see where their initial movements are. Understanding, like you're saying, like if you're going to train with us for a month, and this will happen in August, like a kid will finish up some type of club sport, they'll have a month off, and they're going to start with school sport. It's a big time. It's like the soccer calendar in Vermont. And I'm very open with parents. I'm going to say, listen, you're here for a month. We're not going to really see any statistical measurement improvement of note in 4 weeks. But we are going to keep these numbers on baseline. So when you come back in the winter, we have something to work off of. We can also can compare what you look like now in the summer to what you look like after the season, and see if there's any changes dramatically in your performance there. So one, I'll openly tell a parent, like, we might not see any improvement right now because it's just not enough time. And they need to, like, parents need to learn to respect that, which I think is huge, because everyone comes in, they're like, hey, I want improvement after 1 workout, 2 workouts. I've done this for 5 days in a row. I'm not seeing any changes. And we kind of have to start that conversation. 2 is definitely, like, you know, and it's tough because it really depends on how developed a kid is. Like a 15-year-old may pick something up better than a 12-year-old that just hit a growth spurt. But, you know, I'll say typically if you can train 3 times a week, we'll see a noticeable improvement in numbers after about 6 to 8 weeks, typically. Now, if you're going through a growth spurt at that time, that's atypical. That's not necessarily what we're going to see. If it's a kid who comes in and like does homework and asks for homework and is more engaged, then yeah, we're probably going to see better than normal results. So it's tough because the parents will want like a number. I do not give like a percentage. Typically we see 50% improvement on like, I don't do that. Because I'll also kind of hedge with this. And it's not really a hedge because I actually believe this, is athletes use speed, power, strength, stability, mobility very differently in each of their sports. And even within a sport based off of their position. The basketball point guard needs to be quicker than the basketball center. The basketball center needs to be a little bit stronger in the post than the basketball point guard or wing player. So we kind of have that conversation too, but on the youth side, puberty is going to probably do 80% of the sports performance gains at that point. But that doesn't mean we can't track movement. And I think that's what's really changed for us is like a functional movement screen, or even depending on who we do this with our private clients. We don't do this with our group clients, but we'll get video of their initial like run. We'll have them run a 20. We'll get a video of it. Then 4 weeks later, we'll get another video of it. Another 4 weeks, we get another video of it. So we can kind of show a parent and say like, listen, I understand your kid is the center on the basketball team. He's 6'4" and he's 13 years old. He's not going to be, the strongest kid yet, or he's not going to gain as much weight as he will once he's physically developed. But just look at how he runs on day 1. We cleaned up this, and this, and now look how he's running on day 64 or something like that. So the eyeball test helps. But as far as talking to people about improvement, in our marketing timing, and this is where I'll be like very direct with what we do. This time of year, we are marketing our clients that, like, hey, look at so-and-so has dropped 0.4 of a second off of their 10-yard sprint. And he's just trained with us for 12 weeks, averaging one or 2 sessions a week during soccer. And we're letting the parents know that, one, it is capable to achieve benefits through training concurrently with another sports season. Likewise, if at the end of the summer, we'll be like, okay, athletes that have come in and have trained 13, 14, 15 weeks with us, they've achieved this over the last 15 weeks doing just a dedicated strength conditioning program through the summer. So it's more like collecting the data for the specific athletes, and then timeliness is huge. So if a kid is getting ready for a winter season and they're not playing a fall sport, I want them to see, look at what you can do in 13 to 15 weeks. If it's a busy summer for a kid, I want the parents to see, hey, look at your kid can still improve while doing these other things. So it's more marketing strategy at that point, rather than I'll say like, it can be done. It doesn't necessarily mean your kid will do it because you have to do all these other things like we were just talking about with Kieran's question. Like, you have to be able to come in and make it a priority, but other athletes have done what you're trying to do. And here are some tangible results of those athletes that have done it. And that's more of our marketing. And I say it's very timely depending on where we are. During the winter season, because winter sports are super big in Vermont, we go back to that. Like, look at your kid can get ready for lacrosse and do ski. Here's what it looks like if you train once a week for 15 weeks. Is that ideal? No, but if you're a good enough athlete to do, ski or hockey and then lacrosse, you're probably having some movement capabilities that are above norm for your age or physical maturation. So that's, kind of like where you blend like marketing and business with like actual physical growth of a kid. And it's not perfect, but that's kind of how we'll present it. As far as like marketing goes and telling parents, because I will, this is definitely something that I've done over the last 3 years. I don't tell parents what they want to hear. Brene Brown. I don't know if anyone's ever like heard of Brene Brown. She's an author, but she specializes in studying like vulnerability and all these different kind of emotions. But like, I don't bullshit the parents anymore. Like, I want to be very real. And she calls these rumbles. Like, I'll rumble with a parent because I'm not going to tell them what they want. And if you think your kid is like super good at whatever and warrants one-on-one training, but would benefit from a group class, and I think that's the right place for your kid, like, I'm going to tell you that's where your kid should go. And if not, you can go find, someone else will take your money, but we're going to actually make your kid better. And it is what it is. So I will rumble with parents now because it's, I think like parents can be just a little crazy at times with what their expectations are. But it's not the parent that's getting the results, it's the kid. And it's just the difference, the gap between what a kid is willing to do mentally or physically versus a parent. That's always the best case scenario, is when a kid is like ready to go and a parent is just like, yeah, whatever, my kid wants to do this, so we're going to do it. And they don't really have any expectations for their kids, so you can kind of paint the picture for them. But when the kid is like, oh, I want to do this, I want to make varsity in the fall, like I'm super motivated, and you're like, let's go. Like, that's the kid that you should definitely be documenting their process and be like, this is what it looks like when you're all in. Here is what those results look like. But yeah, we definitely have our performance metrics on day one, and then we bake them into our training going forward. And then we definitely use them situationally for marketing purposes. Long-winded answer. Just excited to be around people this week. Really excited to be around people. I'm not in my garage now. I'm in like this random like multi-purpose room in the gym. It was a really good conversation, really good questions too, guys. What else we got?
So let's say like you have a kid and they've been working with you for, you know, a couple months or something like that, and then they plateau and they're starting to hit their genetic limits. Like, how do you work with them without discouraging them?
Sure. We do two things, and I think without having like more context on that, Anthony, when an athlete starts with us, we specifically, based off their goals and performance metrics that we do, and we may have to add some type of performance test that kind of fits their goals. We ask them, what can we do in the gym that will let you know that you're working towards your goal? Because the strength coach in me is like, get them to do more chin-ups, get them to do more push-ups in a minute, get a little bit more, you know, on their 3-rep max or whatever sub-maximal strength test we may be using, get them to jump a little further. But the kid may not care. Like if you're a soccer goalie, you may not care what your 20-yard sprint speed is. You might just care about your vertical jump because that's what you do in your sport. So, you know, getting them to identify what elements are important to them is huge, because from a strength coach perspective, what I'm trying to say is you may be worried about something that they're not worried about. So the plateau might not necessarily be a concern for them, as long as, like, they might not care how much more weight is getting put on the bar, as long as they can do X and Y, and that's what they think will help them in their sport. Cool. Like if you're a soccer goalie and you want your 5-10-5 to get better and you want your vertical jump to get better and you don't care about what's on the bar when you deadlift, cool. I'm not going to worry about that. But it's good to help me know like what is important to you, so that way when we retest, you know, now let's say that athlete is plateauing in their vertical jump or in their 5-10-5 or whatever it may be. And you don't want them to get like pissed or blame you for like their plateau, because that's like the first thing that a kid will do.
Yeah, so let me give you some context real quick.
Perfect.
I coach girls track.
Okay.
So let's say like I have a girl that runs the 400 and she wants to break a minute, but physically she just can't do it. And like she really wants to do it, but I mean, it's just she just can't. Like you should, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a 110-pound, 5'5" girl who's physically probably not in that, doesn't have the physical capacity to do it. Totally
Yeah.
get it. Yeah. Well, I would say education. Like, okay, force equals mass times velocity. Here's our options. Like at that point, that athlete probably needs to put on 3 to 5 pounds of decent muscle and also maintain that force velocity curve at a high level that will let them actually get propulsion into the ground. So I would lay that out for them. And I would say, here's how you can do it. You know, like understand that your times are blank at blank, you know, metrics per your body. And I think that, and I don't know, Anthony, if you were on the call with Bill. Bill's a javelin thrower. And one thing he appreciated was like, you could be good at the javelin at 5'8", and, you know, he's like a little Italian dude. Like he's not like physical specimen by any means. You know, and for track, I think you definitely, like you're saying, like your limbs and your size definitely limit what you may or may not be good at. But you need to appreciate you can still manipulate those factors based off of science, force velocity curve. I would just break it down for the athlete at that point and say, okay, like, you know, I had a similar conversation with a gentleman who wanted to dunk a basketball, but he was 142 pounds soaking wet, but he was 6'4". I'm like, you have the physical reach to do it, but you're missing these factors that you can control. So I would frame the conversation with that athlete about what you can control, what she could change. And she may have great technique. She may have, you know, the mechanics to get to a sub 60-second 400. But if she was able to increase blank, or if you use any sort of like tech on like RSI, reactive strength index, or anything like that might be something worth exploring for her to achieve her goals, you know, or at least get her working closer towards that goal or out of a plateau. Because I know for track athletes that in that context is super helpful. Like you can be plateauing at a minute 10, and that 10 seconds is huge room for improvement. So she might want to get under a minute, but as long as she can move in that direction, she's probably going to be pretty content with where things are going. And as a coach, you're going to know that her training is taking her closer to where the team wants to go and where you obviously want to see your athletes start to go. So education, man, like communication and education. Like, and at that point, like you probably could challenge her to do it and say like, this is, if you're serious about wanting to reach this goal, here are the steps that you can do to get there, and have that conversation.
All right, cool, thanks.
I don't know. Like, I hopefully that's like an idea. That's kind of how I would probably handle it. But, like, I think that the genetic potential conversation is very interesting because I don't think people work hard enough to reach their genetic potential, but I do believe that your genetics probably play a part in what you'll be successful at. Like Michael Phelps wouldn't be a very good distance runner for the way he's built, but he's a great swimmer because of the way he's built, and that is his genetics. Like, that is just the way his body is. Like, I'm a 5'8", like, evenly proportioned human being. Like, I'm probably, like, if I wanted to dunk a basketball, I got a lot of work going on. Like, I got a lot of work, but I'm built more like a linebacker type deal. Like, it's just not in my genetic card. So could probably be a decent cross country runner, but I think that's it's the genetic conversation with that. The good news is with track, it's physics, so you still got that on your side.
Oh, thank you.
Well, hopefully I help. I don't know. I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna remember that question because when Steve comes on, I'll be like, "What would you tell your track athletes who are?" Because, that's the most specific thing I think you could get, and I think he'd have probably a better answer, and like be like, "Oh, I would work on this movement, this movement, this movement, this movement," and then here's my thoughts on genetic potential or where the athlete may be. Like, how old is that athlete you're talking about?
The athlete I'm talking about, she'll be a senior this year. Like, we actually didn't get to have her season this year because of everything that happened.
Yeah. So, she's probably done, like, rowing as far as, like, physically goes. So I think she's in a position now where it's explosive strength, especially in the 400, which is like a sprint still. Like, working on capacity, working on explosive power, and then obviously driving technique through all of that is going to be huge.
Okay. And I guess, like, with the mental aspect with it, how would you deal with them? Like say, like, it's like mid-season and, like, their time hasn't dropped in a couple of meets and they start getting discouraged about it.
So it's so funny because some of our athletes that are track athletes, I can paint the picture of, like, what this looks like. So for us, it's a conversation of when do you need it by, right? Like, I think athletes love seeing numbers go down. They love seeing improvements. It's like a basketball player wanting to score 20 points a game every game. Like, some days you got it, some days you don't. But for us, it's about highlighting, and obviously you're the coach, so you probably do something like this, but highlighting practice meets, highlighting meets that are of value, like they're qualifiers. So almost paint the picture of, okay, what matters? When do you need it by? Okay, like in Vermont, at least, like, you can go to a meet, and if you hit the number for your event, you qualify for states. Cool. Now, do you need to hit these qualification numbers going forward? You definitely want to see trending, like, positive trends, but at that same time, when do you need it by? Like, when is the best, like, case scenario? When do you want to have that perfect sprint? Probably in the finals, probably when you need to like some, like, championship, or if it's a mid-season type meet. But I would get them involved with your scheduling. Like, if you do any type of periodization or things like that, I would say, like, we're going to look for you to probably set a PR around this time, and then around this time, and then around this time. And every meet along the way is just going to kind of help kind of gauge where we're going, and let them know that they should not be PRing every meet. If they're an advanced sprinter, I would think an advanced sprinter probably isn't PRing every meet. Whereas, like, your novice sprinter, and I don't know, I have an internet connection's unstable thing, so if I'm glitchy, I'm sorry. But
no, you're good.
If you're like a freshman runner, you may PR every meet. But if you're a senior runner who's been doing it, you may not PR every meet. So lay out the expectations and over communicate those expectations, because that way, they'll know when it's a real red flag versus when it's just that little mental voice, like the little shame goblin that's, like, sitting on their shoulder. It's like, you should have done better. You should have done, you can do this, it'd be like the other person on the other side that's like Mr. Positivity being like, no, it's not time to PR yet. It's next week during this midsummer qualifier or whatever it may be. So lay out the expectations, over communicate the expectations.
Okay.
I'm gonna make sure you're on when Steve's on, and I'm just gonna remember. I'm gonna have this recording, so I'm gonna be like, Steve. Anthony,
all right.
Anthony has questions. I'll ask him if he won't.
All right. Good deal.
Mick, I saw you sit up in your chair. What are you thinking? You're on mute. You're on mute.
You faded out, and I jumped up
Oh.
to see if it was me, my connection, or your connection.
It's definitely me. It's definitely me and my computer that my daughter literally stomped 2 weeks ago. Like, you'll see if my webcam starts to go like all glitchy and cuts out. She like walked right up to my laptop and just jumped on it, and it was a sad day. It was a sad, sad day.
How old is she?
18 months. Not old enough to know better, but old enough to weigh enough to really mess up my laptop. She steps on it.
Oh God.
It's a good thing she's cute. This laptop, I'll say HP will get my business next time around because I've had this laptop since 2012. So I feel like that's really good for a computer. And it just started getting like the blue screen when I turn it on. I'm afraid to shut it down. I still get it's tough. But HP is going to get my business here soon. Is this a good time for everyone? Like this noon lunchtime?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
It's good to know. I always
Good
plan
for
on.
me.
I'm East Coast time, and Mick, as you know, like I sometimes forget people aren't all on East Coast time. Shout out to Christelle, who's in South Africa when she watches this, because I don't even know the time difference there. She's in like a different part of the world completely. But that's good because I've been texting back and forth with Chad Coy. He's one of the master trainers for Parisi. He is, I'm going to butcher this, but he is a like 3-time, might even be more than that, a 3-time Masters Strongman USA representative. He handles a lot of the strength curriculum for the Parisi Speed School. And I think that anytime he comes on, it's just a great conversation about strength training. And like the dude is strong. Like they always kind of like the cliche of if you want to get strong, train with someone who's stronger than you. If you want to learn how to get strong, train with a dude who has like a serious total and power lifts, and then you can like YouTube his name and he'll be like on ESPN with like all like the Finns and the Nords like competing in strongman. And he's like not even like quote unquote like that big. He's like 6'1", 270. And these dudes like look like the guy from the guy from Game of Thrones who just deadlifted like a ridiculous amount raw. The Mountain or something like that. Like they all kind of look like that dude. And Chad will definitely be coming on to talk strength. But if you guys have like any topics of interest, share that stuff, man, because I'll talk. I'm chatty, but I think that these guys have been coaching way longer than I've been alive, which is serious perspective. I just openly tell people I make a ton of mistakes, and I love sharing my mistakes with everyone so that no one makes those mistakes. I once tried to open a gym and basically was one zoning inspector away from having that lease signed and the space secured, and that mistake cost me about $26,000. So, when it comes to the business stuff, like other people should definitely give you the business advice, but I can definitely tell you where I went wrong to the tune of $26,000. So, but it's thank God it was years ago, and it turned out okay. But but when it comes to like strength and stuff, like you guys, you listen to Chad, you listen to Steve, and obviously like Bill, when it comes to business stuff, is like he's very charismatic. He's like a high charisma individual, charismatic is the word I'm thinking of. But the dude, like, I'm curious to ask Bill, like, what business transaction went wrong, if he talk about it, because I don't know of too many. Other than he mentioned a little bit on the software side. It's the 12 years that I've been with Parisi. They've always tried to do their own app. They've always tried to do their own software work. That is not a realm for strength coaches. And I'm really glad they've looked at other places to kind of partner with, because, man, strength coaches making business software, point of sale software, training software can be tough. What we got, gang? What we got? What are we gonna close out with? I got 10 minutes before my next client. What we got? What we got? What we got? What we got? What are we gonna finish with? The coffee's starting to kick in.
Anybody else having trouble with that Train Heroic getting into the or on the main page?
Yes, the activity page. So here's where, let me see if I can pull this up. And this is actually good. I'm glad you brought that up, Mick. So I was talking with Elise, our girl, our BFF. She's very nice. She's very patient because I had a lot of questions. So basically, and I'm curious, Mick, how you've been creating this. Just log in here. Share the screen. Okay. So her answer is what I'm currently waiting on, because she's, to my knowledge, when you create a team, like it's a team you've created, it's an athlete you've assigned to that team. So when they finish the workout, it should show up. And actually, log out of this. So it's something to do with the entry on the coach's side, which I don't understand. That's the question. That's been the holdup, because she hasn't really explained it to me so that I understand it. From what I gather, it's how someone is entered into the computer, which from my point of view shouldn't make a difference. Like if how someone gets into this. So like this was me entering a client this morning, and like even looking at this, like it doesn't have everything in here. It has like the notes and everything in here, but like things that I edited along the way. And this was his yesterday, which has everything in. So like I don't understand why your guy won't show up. If like I created this kid as a team calendar, his workout was there. The only difference is I had my iPad out and I was entering it as if I was the kid. So I don't know why your guy, Dan, is the athlete that I was using, Mick. I'm assuming he was the one who was entering it. I don't know why it's not showing up. Like if we go to manage assistant, it should be everyone. And Mick, do you have that activity feed? When you log in, do you have that feed?
Yeah, on the left side there.
Yeah, like this like big Rolodex looking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good, because for whatever reason in my head, I'm like, I wonder if you can't see this. It should just look like this.
Yeah.
But this is what you're not seeing, right? This little like card right here, this isn't showing up.
Yeah, I've got two of them for 1 for 6-1 and 1 for 6-2, but I don't have anything past that.
That's what I don't understand, because the workouts are in there, and so maybe I'll try to get Elise on a call.
It's not even they're not even workouts that I programmed in there.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, this is where the gap between strength coach and tech, like software tech, is very apparent, because like for here, I don't understand why like these show up, but then like nothing else shows up in here. But when I go to your calendar, it's tactical, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you go to athletes, it's in there today or yesterday.
But like right here, this tells me that one person has done it, and this workout that person should show up on the activity screen. That's what I don't get. The only thing that I'm wondering, because was this a, like you didn't make this workout, right, Mick? This was added from a calendar?
Yeah, from your library.
Because I really hope that that's not the reason, because I feel like if an athlete does something in this, it should show up on that activity screen. If it doesn't, that doesn't make sense to me. Like if I'm a coach, I just want to see what my athletes are doing regardless of the workout. So maybe I'll get her on a call, because I need to see, like I don't understand this stuff, so I need to see it. because the way I see it is if I can enter it for a workout and an athlete and it shows up, an athlete should be doing this and it should show up. So I'm working on getting that answer, Mick. I think that there's just a communication barrier between me and a software tech. If you want to, do you want me to connect you with Elise and have you run through it with her?
Sure.
Okay. I'll put you on that email back because I'm like, it's this guy on this day. I can see it on the calendar. Here's the screenshots, but I don't see it on the activity feed. Why?
Yeah, that's probably easier. Yeah.
So we'll do that. And I'm sure she could like get on a call too. And that's the other piece, you guys too. Like, if you have any questions with Train Heroic, you can reach out to them and set up these training calls with them, and there's no cost for that. So they're very nice. I will say their customer service is very, very approachable, very understanding. It's just if you're like me and you're like kind of a dumb tech guy, like I don't understand when they use like some phrases. I'm like, you have to explain it to me like I'm 5. But you have access to Train Heroic's customer service like as if you were a coach, like you are a coach on this. So by any means, if you want to reach out and schedule them, just even if it's like a walkthrough, because they can explain this stuff way better than I can. I just explain it to you how we use it in our facility. Like I said, I don't work for them. I just use their product. I don't get any type of kickback or anything like that. I wish they would send me like a hat or a shirt. That'd be sick. But I don't. I'm like, I use their stuff. So
give that lady my email and
I will. I'll do that. Actually, I'll do that right now. Pull up my email so I know that. Stuff to share here. Should I pull up my email? But yeah, if that's what you guys got for today, then we'll do this again. I'll try to get a guest next week, whether it's Chad or Steve. And I think Bill wants to come on like all the time now. He like did like that one call last week, and Bill's like, I want to do it again. So there's no shortage of Bill Parisi.
1 o'clock.
No shortage of Bill Parisi you guys are going to get over the next couple months. New Jersey is not even close to opening up anytime soon. So he is literally still like locked out of his own buildings. So, so he's just like chilling in his home office. I think he's like itching to do anything with anyone, which is really good for us. So we'll wrap it up with that today. Think about where you guys want to take this mentorship, what you want to learn specifically, and then we'll do our damnedest to make sure we can get that stuff going. You know, like we've got the curriculum calendar, but at the same time, like I said a couple weeks ago, like be selfish. This was your time investment, your money investment. Like let's make it what you guys want.
Cool.